welcome to Wednesday's first video. After a disappearance of around 3 weeks, at last PM Abiy seems to be back. Just an hour ago, he shared a message. What is this message about? In coming days, some key meetings are expected. Will PM Abiy attend the upcoming meetings or not? Secondly, a new story from the Somali region of Ethiopia where Al-Shabaab fighters attacked. They have been attacking for almost a week. And Mustafa Omar, Somali region's president, talked to VOA Amharic, Voice of America Amharic. And there he spoke about foreign involvement in the attacks on Ethiopia. Who is involved in these Al-Shabaab attacks on Ethiopia? Thirdly, we have a new story about Oromo Liberation Army. We have received some reports about ongoing fighting. Where is the fighting between OLA and government forces being reported? And lastly, we have two new stories from Eritrea. Firstly, Eritrean Information Ministry, Eritrean Embassy in the US a few hours ago released statements. They condemned an article written for a think tank, a Council on Foreign Relations. What is this article about, and what is Eritrea's position about this article? And lastly, Stockholm, Sweden, where on Thursday, Eritrean diaspora community is due to organize a festival, but some Eritrean opposition groups are trying to stop this festival, and the venue, the park where this festival was due to be held, its administration communicated to festival organizers that they were not allowed to use the premises, the buildings, the electricity and toilets of the park. Then what happened? Overnight, some preparations were seen at the park. Some makeshift arrangements are being made. It seems that festival will be held. We have some videos for you. Firstly, PM Abiy of Ethiopia seems to be back after a disappearance of around 3 weeks. His last social media post was on the 8th of July, second last, because last came just 2 hours ago. And he was seen addressing Ethiopian parliament around 3 weeks ago. Since then, he remained missing. Today, he shared a message. In coming days, some key meetings are expected. What did he say? In his message, he called upon the people to be united. He said Ethiopia has faced challenges, but Ethiopia has met these challenges, and Ethiopia knows how to counter the challenges despite international pressure, despite the campaign of Western media, the campaign under which several countries collapsed. Ethiopia countered this campaign, this pressure. Ethiopia is there to stay. He expressed his sorrow over loss of property, loss of lives in northern part of Ethiopia, Tigray conflict, northern and western parts of Ethiopia, and he urged Ethiopians that they should think positively and they should stay united. And Ethiopia is home to treasures of the world in terms of civilization, in terms of natural resources. So people should think positively, they should be optimistic, and Ethiopia will come out of the crisis. So sort of inspirational message which he shared, which he keeps on sharing, nothing new. Now, in coming days, some key meetings are expected. Firstly, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in Addis Ababa yesterday. He was welcomed by Damake Mekonnen, Ethiopian Foreign Minister and Deputy Prime Minister. Will PM Abiy meet Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov? Second meeting could be between PM Abiy and international human rights investigators. The UN formed a commission, UN Inquiry Commission, to investigate human rights abuses committed during Tigray conflict. The commission is in Ethiopia. There could be a meeting between the commission members and PM Abiy. Thirdly, Samantha Power of USAID is on Horn of Africa visit. She has visited Somalia. Yesterday she was in Kenya, I think. So she could travel to Ethiopia. And last time when Samantha visited Ethiopia, PM Abiy did not meet her. Back then she visited Ethiopia after visiting Sudan. In Sudan she spoke against Ethiopian government. So that is why PM Abiy gave the cold shoulder to Samantha Power last time. And lastly, Mike Hammer, US Special Envoy to the Horn of Africa, is starting. He started his visit. He'll visit Egypt, UAE and Ethiopia, and his visit will focus on GERD and Tigray conflict. So will PM Abiy meet Mike Hammer, Samantha Power, Sergei Lavrov or not? That remains to be seen. But where was he? I mean, Prime Minister of a country was nowhere to be seen for around 3 weeks and he is not answerable. Where was he? He is paid. I mean, these presidents, prime ministers, they are paid by the people. People of Ethiopia pay them. So they can ask them, where were you? Did you discharge your official duties within the last 3 weeks? And why did you go missing? Questions should be asked and PM Abiy should explain where he was in the last 3 weeks. Secondly, viewers, Mustafa Umar, Somali region's president, was interviewed by Voice of America Amharic a few hours ago. The interview was about Al-Shabaab attacks on the Somali region of Ethiopia. Mustafa Umar chose to talk to Voice of America Amharic. It is said that he has close ties with Amharic news sources. In the past, he was accused that he was funding some Amharic news sources, especially local Ethiopian Amharic news sources, and he was funding them to prop up his image as a leader. So he talked to Voice of America Amharic and he said that Al-Shabaab attacks on Ethiopia were related to Nile River water dispute. What does he mean? It seems he is saying that Egypt is involved in these attacks, that Egypt is using Al-Shabaab against Ethiopia to put pressure upon Ethiopia because Ethiopia is it's filling the dam, Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Did not name Egypt, but he implied that Egypt is behind this escalation on Ethiopia-Somalia border. Now, all internal conflicts in Ethiopia are blamed on Egypt. I have seen statements that TPLF is backed by foreign actors, Egypt. OLA is backed and funded by Egypt. Goma's fighters are backed, funded by Egypt. Kimat fighters are backed, funded by Egypt. Al-Shabaab fighters backed, funded by Egypt. Egypt, I'm not saying that Egypt has no role in Ethiopian internal problems, but it shouldn't be a habit of Ethiopian officials that they blame Egypt for whatever is happening in Ethiopia. If Egypt is involved in these attacks, Mustafa Umar should share some evidence. Where is the evidence? Just a verbal statement cannot be taken as a proof. Do you have any evidence that Egypt is involved in these attacks? The attacks could be linked to Al-Shabaab's expansionist policies. Al-Shabaab has long been interested in taking control of Ethiopian territories. And there is some sympathy for Al-Shabaab in some areas of the Somali region, Muslim majority area Somali region. And it is said that the fighters who were involved in recent attacks, ongoing attacks on Ethiopia, were Ethiopian. Some of them were Ethiopian. They were from the Somali region, and some were Oromos. So Al-Shabaab is recruiting from Ethiopia, and these Ethiopians are being used to carry out attacks on Ethiopian territories. So I think first you should try to see what is happening internally in Ethiopia before blaming Egypt for Al-Shabaab attacks. I'm not ruling out the possibility of Egyptian involvement, but the government should share some evidence if Egypt is involved in these border attacks on Ethiopian territories. Thirdly was Oromo Liberation Army, OLA, an armed group led by Komsaderba Jalmaro, operating in the Oromia, mainly in the Oromia region of Ethiopia for decades. Government has launched an operation against OLA for the last 2 months. This operation has been going on. We have received some reports about ongoing fighting in central Oromia, which was never a stronghold of Oromo Liberation Army, but in recent months, OLA has managed to strengthen its presence in central Oromia. Fighting is being reported to the west of Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa, around 150 kilometers away from Addis Ababa. Now, OLA has consolidated its position. Despite several operations, OLA could not be removed from these positions. I'm talking about West Shava zone of Oromia. From 3 districts, we have received reports that there is ongoing fighting between government force and OLA. OLA is claiming to have inflicted heavy losses on government forces. We have no confirmation about losses. But we did confirm from the ground that in 3 main waradas of Vasheva, this week and last week, there was heavy fighting between government forces and Oromo Liberation Army. And when operation against OLA was launched 2 months ago, it was said that OLA will be forced to move back into Valaga from central Oromia. OLA is still in central Oromia in 3 districts ongoing fighting. Firstly, Abuna Gindabarat. For the last 3 months in Gindabarat, Abuna Gindabarat, there has been fighting between government forces and Oromo Liberation Army. So Abuna Gindabarat is still seriously destabilized. Secondly, Jaldo. Jaldo came under OLA once. I think I reported a few weeks ago. We shared pictures of OLA fighters from Jaldo. Once again, fighting in Jaldo being reported. And thirdly, Mitta. Mitta is also in Vasheva. Mitta, Jaldo and Abuna Gindabarat. We confirmed that there was heavy fighting last week and this week between OLA and government forces, around 100 kilometers away from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It means that government strategy to dismantle OLA, to remove it completely from areas close to Addis Ababa, it's not working so far. Fourthly, we have 2 new stories from Eritrea. Firstly, Eritrean Information Ministry and Eritrean Embassy in US released statements a few hours ago. The statements are about an article published by Council on Foreign Relations website. Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, is a US think tank on foreign policy. The article was written by Michelle Gavin. It is about Somalia soldiers under training in Eritrea. The writer claims that Eritrean role in the Horn of Africa is alarming, that Eritrea has malign desires and Somalia's decision to get its soldiers trained in Eritrea will have regional consequences. Today, Eritrean government says if US can train Somalia's forces, if Turkey can train Somalia's forces, why not Eritrea? Very valid point. And secondly, it said that Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud, president of Somalia, himself visited Eritrea and saw the training of these soldiers. He was satisfied. Somalia's people are satisfied. Then who is Council on Foreign Relations to dictate terms in the Horn of Africa? It says that Western intellectuals, Western media, Western power should not try to dictate Horn of Africa countries. Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia signed a tripartite agreement in 2018 because it was in their interest. And Horn of Africa countries know how to protect their interests. And the statement criticizes UN Special Rapporteur's report as well, that it claimed Eritrea deployed Somalia soldiers to Tigray, but it was a false, baseless report. I think after Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud's visit to Eritrea, Eritrean government's position now has become stronger in terms of attacks on Eritrea, that it deployed Somalia soldiers to Tigray. Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud government of Somalia and former government of Abdullah Farmajo both have rejected the accusations that Somalia soldiers were deployed by Eritrea to fight in Tigray in support of Eritrean and Ethiopian forces against Tigray Defense Force. Lastly, viewers, Stockholm, Sweden, where a diaspora festival has become a source of confrontation between pro and pro-government and opposition diaspora groups of Eritreans in Stockholm, Sweden. Bright Future Movement and some other movements of opposition parties are trying to stop this program. A few hours ago, administration of the public park where this festival is due to be held cancelled an agreement with festival organizers, and festival organizers were communicated by park administration that the organizers will not be allowed to use electricity, parks premises, parks facilities, toilets as well. Then what happened after that? After that, Eritrean diaspora community stepped up its makeshift arrangements, and overnight some preparations have been made. Makeshift arrangements have been made. So it seems that festival will be held. It's going to start tomorrow on Thursday. Abiy Ahmed is expected to attend this major diaspora festival in Sweden. We have a clip for you showing overnight preparations underway for the holding of this festival. Thank you for watching. Watch this video.